Whether you love him or you hate him, if you watch backpacking YouTube videos, you know this dude. In late 2018, Dan Becker began taking his YouTube channel seriously. He started posting videos and shit absolutely popped off from there. This video right here is going to be an attempt to answer two questions about Dan Becker. The first being, why did that dude get so popular so fast? And the second being, why does he get so much hate? What's up, everybody? My name is Kyle. I love hiking, I love backpacking, which is, I'm pretty much quoting Dan Becker's intros right now, but for real, I'm a huge hiking nerd. If you're a hiking nerd yourself, be sure to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for Dan Becker as well. Now, right from the start here, I want to say this is not a Dan Becker hate video, so if you're like stretching your fingers, getting ready to freaking defend this dude in the comments, take a chill pill. And also, if you're getting ready to talk shit on Dan Becker in the comments, you can also stop as well. This is going to be my attempt to be as objective as I possibly can about how Dan Becker got so successful on YouTube, and of course about why this dude gets so much freaking hate online. It seems to me that Dan Becker's first attempt at making like a serious, like informative YouTube video was in late November of 2018. Now, he had a few videos before that, but I think they were just like kind of your casual, like, oh, I'll just upload to YouTube video. I don't think he was really like making a serious attempt at like building an audience until he posted that first video called Hammock Claustrophobia, The Cure.
Hey, my name is Dan, and you probably found this video because you are claustrophobic in a hammock.
At that time, I mean, I don't know his exact subscriber, view count, whatever, but I'm sure it was like next to nothing. And here we are just a little bit more than a year later in January of 2020, and this dude has over 42,000 subscribers. He has a number of videos with over 100,000 views, which is just insane for a niche as small as backpacking is. So let's start by examining how exactly this happened. Now, obviously, like, I'm not an expert on this, but there are a few things that Dan Becker has done with this channel that I am interested in talking about, interested in analyzing, honestly, just because I've started my channel recently and I've been trying to grow. This stuff just interests me, honestly, and I'm assuming if you're interested in backpacking content, you've at least kind of wondered about this a little bit. I host a hiking podcast called Trail Tales, and recently I had a guest on my show named Jeremiah Stringer Hikes, and you should definitely go check out his YouTube channel. I'll link it above right now. This dude and I were talking after the show about just kind of YouTube. I was asking him some YouTube, not YouTube. I was asking him some questions because, you know, my channel's new and he's been doing it a little bit longer than I have. And we got talking about Dan Becker. And honestly, until this conversation that I had with Jeremiah Stringer just a few weeks ago, I honestly never understood why Dan Becker's channel had succeeded. Now, I didn't think his videos were bad. I wasn't like, you know, I didn't have anything against the guy, but I just didn't understand why him, out of all the backpacking YouTubers out there, like, yeah, why he was exploding, why his shit was popping off so much. Now, Jeremiah Stringer actually knows Dan Becker. I think they've met a couple times and they interact online as well. Unlike me, I do not know Dan Becker. I've never talked to Dan Becker. Dan Becker does not know who I am. He's never seen one of my videos, although he might be watching this one just because it's about him. So if that's the case, what up, Dan? Big fan of your thumbnails. And so Jeremiah Stringer, I think, really had a better understanding of Dan's success than I did. And most of what I'm about to say is paraphrasing kind of what he told me. The reason that Dan Becker's channel became so successful so fast is because he executed perfectly on a number of smaller things. And with that said, we're gonna go through what I personally think all these things contributing to his success have been so far. Dan Becker fits the demographic of his viewership to a T. So what exactly is his demographic? Now, obviously, I'm gonna generalize here. Like, obviously, like, not every single person that has ever watched a Dan Becker video will fit this description, but the majority of people, if you had to kind of categorize them, are going to fit into this demographic. So the first part of this is his age, right? So most people that are watching these gear-related backpacking videos from Weekend Warriors are going to be middle-aged dudes, you know, say 30, 35, up to 55, 60 years old. I don't know Dan Becker's exact age, and maybe the dude is just a fucking stud, but I'm pretty sure he's like within that age range, you know. Dan Becker is a weekend warrior, and I think this is the most important part of fitting into the demographic, I guess. Most of the people watching Dan Becker's YouTube videos have never done a thru hike before. They're mostly just going out on weekends, you know, maybe once a month, maybe even less than that sometimes. And a lot of their relationship to backpacking revolves around gear. That's right, you know, testing new gear, buying new gear, doing reviews, reading reviews. Gear is a huge part of, yeah, their relationship to backpacking. And that's not to say that thru hikers and more like serious, just in terms of the amount of miles hiked, backpackers don't care about gear. They obviously do. But before I get too sidetracked here, people trust Dan Becker because he is essentially just one of them. He fits the demographic. He is a weekend warrior who's going to be using the same types of gear as these people and using it in the same way as well. I never really realized this before, honestly, but having like that sort of trust in somebody, knowing that they are pretty much the same type of hiker as you are, is huge when it comes to retaining and building an audience. And I think that's the first reason why Dan Becker has been so successful so quickly. So the second reason why Dan Becker has found so much success is just because like his videos have a really, really high production quality, and this factor alone isn't going to ever like make a YouTube channel successful. However, it is kind of required these days in order to kind of propel yourself. I mean, again, if you have like perfect video quality, perfect sound quality, but you're just talking about bullshit all day, no one's gonna watch. But at the same time, if you are giving the best advice ever, telling the most interesting stories, but you're filming with like a 2003 flip phone and, you know, a shitty microphone, then you're probably going to lose some people because of that. His quality has improved quickly over time. You know, at the beginning it wasn't like the best ever, but I mean, it was still totally adequate, still like better than my production quality is, honestly. And it obviously got better over time. And it's to the point now where, I mean, this dude is filming with a very expensive camera. He obviously spends a lot of time editing, color grading, just making sure everything looks good, sounds good. Audio is super important as well. And that's just another like huge reason why people have started to follow him. So the third little thing that I believe has contributed to Dan Becker's success is the dude is just good on camera. I mean, let's be honest, like he has the perfect personality for YouTube. He's charismatic, he's very likable, he's a little bit cheesy, a little bit corny, but not like over the top, and he communicates very, very well. Again, it does not matter how like true the things you're saying are. It does not matter how crazy the story you're telling is. If you can't communicate that effectively and you can't hold people's attention, people aren't going to be receptive of what you're going to say. Dan Becker definitely knows this. You can tell that he has kind of developed this personality, this charisma, you know, in dealing with people and communicating things to people, you know, prior to starting YouTube. I think he was kind of able to accelerate his personality and really kind of open up a lot quicker than most people do on camera, probably quicker than me, honestly. His audience recognizes this, and as a result, I believe it is a huge reason why he's found so much success so quickly. And the last reason why I think he has found this success is simply just because he gives just good advice, honestly. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple things I would disagree with if we're gonna get like really nitpicky as far as like gear and stuff goes, but for the most part, he's given good advice, especially again towards his demographic of weekend warriors. Because of this, he has built up a good reputation, and yeah, it's just served him really well. Now, again, I think it's those four factors in combination with each other that have brought him this success. He's executed all these little things perfectly, and I honestly believe if any piece of that puzzle, if any part of that equation wasn't up to snuff with the rest of it, he wouldn't have found the success that he has. And honestly, I might not be making this video right now. Now this kind of brings us to the second question that I posed at the beginning of this video, and that is, why does this dude, this family man, this, you know, just very likable weekend warrior get so much hate from people online? So I'm editing this video right now, and I just feel like there's something I didn't say that I probably should have, so I'm just gonna interject real quick here. I just wanna define like who I'm talking about when I say like haters or trolls or whatever. I'm not talking about people who make like reasonable jokes about Dan Becker, and honestly that's something that I do in a lot of my other videos and even in this video as well. I'm not talking about the people here that like make jokes and use satire. I'm not talking about Ultralight Jerk posting a meme about how Dan Becker is like the greatest hiker ever or something like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about people who disagree with Dan Becker's gear choices either. I'm not talking about people who leave comments that are respectful but still disagree with what he says. Not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about the people that leave like hateful comments, the people who are like super mean, the people who attack his character for no reason. Those assholes. I'm not talking about people who make reasonable jokes and people who just disagree with what he says. I think the most obvious reason why people hate on Dan Becker and kind of talk shit about Dan Becker is just because, again, going back to that first question, just like anything in life, if you achieve a certain level of success, especially if you achieve it as fast as Dan Becker has, you're gonna get a little bit of hate. Like, it's just kind of inevitable. And I really think the Becker boy haters can be broken down into 3 different categories, and we're gonna go through all 3 of these right now. So the first one, and probably the least prominent one, is just gonna be other like hiking YouTubers, usually ones that aren't very successful. The only reason why I'm including this in there, because honestly I've never seen any evidence of this, is because Dan Becker mentioned on the Shill Brothers podcast, Backcountry BSing, I think it is, that he did, which is a great show, by the way. You should go check out that. He did mention very briefly that he's gotten a little bit of hate from some of these like other backpacking channels, but for the most part, I don't think it's like the backpacking YouTubers that are really causing that many problems with him. He didn't really elaborate too much, so I'm not really sure. I think he's getting way more hate from these next 2 groups of people. The first of which is people that wish they could start a backpacking YouTube channel. For every channel that exists, I feel like there's at least 3 or 4 people online that want to start a channel but like just don't have the balls to do it, honestly. And like, I get it, like it's not easy to come up here and be on camera. I feel like a lot of people want to do this and they see Dan Becker coming on camera and saying a lot of things that they might already know or things that aren't like super complicated, and they see his shit just popping off and they're like, okay, well, deep down, like I want that. Like I want that to be me. I want that success. I want that money. Like the dude's talking about going full-time YouTube now. Like he's obviously doing okay. In their heart, they know that they want that, but they're too afraid, or maybe there's some other reason, but I don't know. Either way, they can't bring themselves to do it, right? And instead of like kind of internalizing that and maybe trying to confront it and maybe just buying a freaking camera and posting some shit online, they take it out on Dan Becker. They take it out on the dude that has succeeded to the level at which they could, and they're just kind of assholes. And the second group of people that are giving Dan Becker shit, and I'll be honest, I don't think this group is quite as present in Dan Becker's comments and stuff as that group I just mentioned a second ago. But this second group is, honestly, I hate to say it, but people like me, like the more thru hiker crowd. And honestly, I have a little bit of sympathy for these folks. I don't have sympathy for people who leave like hateful, nasty comments, but I do kind of understand why some people who have hiked thousands and thousands of miles are a little bit puzzled at why this dude that just goes out every now and then on weekends and then just spends most of his time talking about gear is achieving so much success. Again, I never like hated Dan Becker, but I mean, I was kind of in this boat like to some degree because I was kind of perplexed at why he had achieved so much success on YouTube. And honestly, I really don't think that you are justified to give the dude any hate for this. I mean, he's just a guy with a family and a full-time job. He's just a regular dude who happens to be pretty good on camera, and likes to talk about gear and stuff. I think a lot of the people that shit on Dan Becker because they have more experience hiking than he does, they have more miles under their belt, don't really realize that Dan Becker has never claimed to be like the infinite like backpacking knowledge source or anything. He's never claimed to be like a better backpacker than anybody else. If you are like so worked up over like some random dude making YouTube videos about like backpacks and shit, then I think you really need to kind of reevaluate like your life. I could probably go on and say like some really cliche shit about like hike your own hike and treat others like well and stuff, but I'm not gonna do that. Just don't be a dick, people. And honestly, if you're gonna make jokes, at least make them like funny and not like completely just hateful, I guess. Like, if you liked this video, be sure to like this video and even subscribe to this channel. I think that's gonna do it.